It does have a bit of a reputation for being haunted sights and sounds that people can't quite explain, and a few of the folks on my tours have gotten some interesting pictures as well. What looks like people looking out the windows at us. It's kind of interesting. It's a beautiful example of federal-style architecture. It was built in 1804. The architect was Samuel McIntyre. He was a pretty big deal in the early 1800s, and he's responsible for a lot of the beautiful wood carving that you see in the front. This building was home to a pretty epic conspiracy story that ended in a brutal murder. It was purchased in 1814 by a Captain Joseph White. Captain White was a slaver and a sea captain, and he was doing this when anti-slavery sentiment was very high in Salem. Salem is one of the first communities in New England to wake up to the horrors of slavery. He didn't have a lot of family. He had one niece named Mary who worked as his maid. She had a daughter, and her daughter's husband was Joseph Knapp. Joseph was an impatient and ambitious man, and he believed, due to his marital connection to the from the great niece to the captain, that he would inherit a sizable chunk of the old man's fortune if the old man were to die. So he and his brother Frank conspired to kill Captain White, but they didn't want to get their own hands dirty. They actually commissioned this out to another pair of brothers, the brothers Crown and Shield. And so on a summer night in 1833, on a night that Mary is conveniently out of the house, she's never implicated. We don't know if she had anything to do with it, but she's out of the house when it happens. Crown and Shield brothers sneak in. Second window from the left on the second floor was his bedroom. They go into the bedroom, they beat him beyond recognition with a cudgel, and they stab him 13 times. This was the most horrifying thing to happen in Salem since the witch trials of 1692. And it was the first example, it was the first cultural example in the United States of the whole idea of crime of the century, murder of the century, trial of the century, in all of the newspapers across the country. Everyone's talking about it. Not long after, the story would become eclipsed by the Lizzie Borden story, which is also a Massachusetts story, but the Captain White story is the first example of that kind of phenomenon. Now, all of the brothers eventually get caught, and different things happen to them. One of the Crown and Shield brothers manages to escape. We don't know what happens to him after that. The other Crown and Shield brother hangs himself. Prior to going to trial. He does it in jail. And then the Knapp brothers, they are publicly executed in the yard of one of Salem's prisons. Salem loves its prisons, and I actually have several prison locations to show you this evening.
Going into the first.
This building also has an interesting pop culture connection. Across from the final Salem prison, and it is on our tour, I'll be showing it to you pretty soon. There was the Parker Brothers Game Factory. Parker Brothers made their home in Salem for a long time before the company was sold to China. And at one point they acquire a game from the United Kingdom known as Cluedo. They bring it here and they adapt it to American knowledge and understanding. They take a lot of the elements of the Captain White story, and it becomes the game that we know as Clue. And early iterations of the game board have a mansion on the front of it that's designed to resemble this particular mansion. So we are going to, it's going to be kind of crowded.